This is Office Talk with Annette Stepanian. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Office Talk. I'm your host, Annette Stepanian, and in this week's episode, I'm talking to one of my favorite people that I have come across since starting my business, Alisha Johns of Lish Creative. So if you've ever checked out my website, or maybe you've even checked out the cover art for this podcast, most of those pictures have been taken by Alisha. Alisha is the founder and creative director of Lish Creative, a content agency for vibrant beauty and lifestyle brands. She's worked with some amazing brands, including Benefit Cosmetics, Delta, Dunkin Donuts. I mean, the list goes on and on. And we're approaching this episode both for those of you who look to someone like Alisha and are like, how did she start her business? What are some of the tricks of the trade? What can I do to get my business to that level? But also from the perspective of any other business owner who is looking to develop a vibrant, consistent brand identity. So she shares her experience, her expertise, and we kind of dig into some of the opinions we have about social media and using that as a tool for growth in your business. So it's a fun conversation. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Before we dive in, I gotta give a huge shout out for Legal 360 Live. It is happening. This train is going to be leaving the station very soon. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's Legal 360 Live is, think of it kind of like a get-together, a boot camp, a online summit where I am going to lay down the law, no pun intended. We are going to get together in an online forum and I am going to walk you through step by step those things that you need to know as you are starting and growing your business. So if you've never taken the time to get your legal act together, if you've kind of been doing it very piecemeal, well, this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for you to put on your big girl pants and get to work on these things. And we're going to do that together. So if any of this sounds appealing to you, and I hope it does, head on over to yourlegalbff.com/live and sign up. Because like I said, the date is coming quickly and I don't know if I'm ever going to do it again. So if you want to get in on it, this is the time to act. So with that said, let's dive into the episode. Well, I am beyond excited to be here today with probably one of my favorite people, like on earth, but also like on Instagram for sure. You just make me so happy. Alisha, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you are so sweet. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to be part of the podcast.
Hey, and you've done the cover art for this podcast and a lot of the photography on my website.
I love that. Love that.
So we kind of gave it away. If for some reason folks don't know you, they know that you are a photographer because I kind of spilled the beans there. But why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. So as Annette said, my name is Alisha and I'm the founder and creative director of Lish Creative, which is a content agency for vibrant beauty, lifestyle, and hospitality brands. That's my official elevator pitch.
That's impressive. I like that. Way to go with that elevator pitch. So, okay, let's unpack that a little bit. And I want to go back to how you first got started. Because I feel like a lot of people aspire to have businesses like yours. And, sometimes it's easy to kind of look at someone like you who is working with all these great brands and has a following and all that. And it can be kind of intimidating. But why don't we take people back to, once upon a time? What did it look like when you first started this journey?
That's a great idea because it's a question that I get asked all the time from students or people just starting out. So I'm happy to kind of dive into that. I studied marketing at Virginia Tech. When I graduated, I worked at an advertising agency, first as a copywriter, then as a social media specialist, and eventually as a creative strategist. From when I was in these jobs and when I was in college, I always wanted to do my own thing and have my own business. And I wanted to be a creative director, but I didn't have any portfolio experience at all. So with Instagram, I really just started using it as a portfolio in an effort to get a job. I was having a tough time in the job search initially, and by using the platform, it was a way to differentiate myself from other applicants, and it really did work. That's how I landed my jobs that I first got, and I really started to like it after a while. I mean, at that time, I maybe had like 2,000 followers when I was interviewing for some of these jobs, but I just kept at it. I took photos on the nights and weekends just for fun. I didn't even know how to use a DSLR camera at the time. I was using my iPhone, didn't know anything about mobile editing apps, nothing. It was just taking pictures of things that brought me joy. And eventually people started asking me to take pictures for their brands. And I was already doing like some copywriting freelance and social media stuff freelance because it was what I did in my advertising job. So I never really said no to anybody. And I just learned as I went along and wasn't afraid to say, sure, I'll photograph your product, even though in the back of my mind, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But it was just that willingness to learn that allowed me to kind of build up my business as I was still working.
So I have a question there. So you're like, I want to interview for jobs, so I'm just going to create a portfolio on Instagram. And then like when you would apply for these jobs, you'd refer people to your Instagram page. Is that what you were doing? Was that
exactly? I actually built like an Etsy shop and then used social media to market that business. And so it was like a case study, like, oh, look what I've been able to do with this like little Etsy shop that's like selling these like stupid paintings. Like,
yeah,
imagine what I could do for your brand, but that's actually like a great product.
That's so smart because it's like don't just tell me, show me, right? And so I think sometimes, I mean, regardless of what business you're in or whatever, even if you're not in business, like I think sometimes we're like, trust me, you know, I'm really great. But here you are, you're like, look, I actually have results to back it up, to back up my opinion of how great my work is.
Yeah, and people always ask me like, how do I get hired? How do I get portfolio pieces? And it's just like, do anything, like take pictures of anything, write your own blog, do anything that can display your talents just for fun.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think sometimes I know I do, like I put so much pressure on like everything has to kind of fit within like the business kind of box, like, oh, can I monetize this? Or is this kind of leading me to that next step versus like just doing and creating just for fun for the sake of it. I think that's a really good lesson there. Kind of another really silly question. If I scroll all the way back down to your Instagram, will I see those original photos or did you archive those?
Well, no, they're there. There's a lot of scrolling, but
yeah, I love when people actually show like the beginnings, you know, and you're like, you see the evolution. Yeah. I think that's really cool. Cool. Okay. So have you always been creative? Like as a kid?
Well, you know, yes and no. Yes, in that I always, you know, had art sets and took ceramics in high school, but I was also an athlete, which was a lot of people don't know about me at all. A lot of people assume that I wasn't for some reason. So that was really my focus, like until college. But I always did love art. I just never thought that I could pursue it as a career.
Yeah. So going back, like you started with the Instagram, you started getting some leads, you started getting folks wanting to do brand photography for them. How has your business evolved over the last few years? Because I feel like we've known each other for at least 2 years or so. Yeah, and I've just loved seeing first of all, your drive and like your passion, and you just have such a great head on your shoulders. But you're welcome. But I think also just like I see the evolution, both like, you know, in terms of the type of work you're doing and then, you know, who you're working with. But so I would love to see kind of hear it in your own words, like how has the business evolved for you since you started?
Well, I left my full-time job to pursue Lish Creative in January of 2016, so a little over 2 years ago. At the beginning, it was like the typical entrepreneur or creative entrepreneur thing where you just offer everything because you don't want to miss out on any business. Yeah. So my website was like copywriting and social media management and strategy and photos and all the things. So I really narrowed that down to just visual content. In the past 2 years, I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then I think just continuing to develop my kind of clean and colorful style by putting that out there. And I always tell people how you position yourself, that will attract the right people. Mm-hmm. So by putting out that kind of work consistently, and so that means if I did work for a client that didn't fit in my aesthetic, I just never talked about it. So like, yeah, you have to make money, and sometimes you have to do projects for, let me try to think, like I think I did writing for like a engineering firm or something at the beginning. It's like, am I ever going to put that on my Instagram or on my portfolio? No, but at the beginning you have to make money. So I think by really just being so selective and so curated with what I was putting out there, whether it was on my website or Instagram, what I was talking about, that really brought in the right kind of clients. So I stopped getting like the dark, moody, industrial type of brands. And like now I'm getting mostly beauty, lifestyle, and hospitality, which are the three that I advertise.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I mean, that takes time. Like you said, you kind of have to kind of swim around in the waters a little bit to figure it out. And then as you hone your skill set, as you see kind of what the market is responding to, you can define that, you know, more and more. And so I feel like now, you have a very, like, I know when your picture pops up in my Instagram feed, like, I know it's yours. Because, But in terms of like the business side, I think what was always so impressive to me was, in my eyes, you were kind of like, you know, like I felt like you're kind of like my younger sister in some ways, you know, where it was like, oh, I just want to have you in my life. But I feel like you were very smart in kind of taking responsibility for your business early on, in terms of like doing the like fun kind of the adulting stuff, right? Yeah. So what was it when you realized like, okay, I need to really get my stuff together? Like, I got to get my business, like the finances and together, my accounting, my legal, my contracts. I mean, all that stuff. Like, what was that turning point for you when you're like, okay, I really got to like, figure this out?
That's a great question. I think it was really when I was at the Savvy Business Owners Conference. You were there. Mm-hmm. You know, you presented on contracts. At the time, I was having like one of those client nightmares where I had wished I had a better contract, you know. And then I had also not been keeping up with my bookkeeping, and there was like a whole accounting thing. I didn't know much about like where my money was going, and there was a whole financial planning session. So it was like very good timing, because that was my first year of business, and it was like a little more than halfway through the year, and I was like, oh my gosh, this year's going to end. I'm not going to have any of my bookkeeping done. I have no idea where my money's going. I'm trying to move to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So I need to figure this stuff out. So I'd say the conference, and then me really wanting to move and figure out my financials, and then also me wanting to have better client experiences by having a better contract, that all kind of made me decide to adult.
To adult. I know, right? I have those days where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna adult today and do those things I don't want to actually spend my time doing, but I have to do. But yeah, and that was the thing that I remember that conversation in the Uber.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about, you know, a client taking advantage and needing a better contract. And I think we started working on it right after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember I think I told you, like, listen, you know, your contract says so much about you, and like, kudos for having a contract, but I think the type of contract you were sending out wasn't addressing some of these issues, but I think was giving the perception to the client that you saw yourself as like kind of, you know, I say like a small fish in a big pond, right? And then like we clean that up, and you know, I think it just, for the types of clientele that you wanted to work with, or the types of clients you want to work with, it kind of elevated the professionalism of it. And so that's why I always say contracts are a branding instrument as well as,
They are, totally.
to cover yourself. Yeah, that was funny. We were driving around Phoenix trying to find smoothies because I was
Whole Foods.
I remember I was on a cleanse and you had some. Yeah, we were driving around at like 10 p.m. at night trying to find a Whole Foods. So that was fun. But anyway, okay, so what are some kind of tips and advice that you'd give people who are maybe like, you know, a year or two behind you in terms of their business, and they see you working with these awesome brands, right? Like the kind of the big companies that you work with, like what kind of advice would you give them in terms of how they can get there as well?
Well, the first thing would be to position yourself to do the work that you want to be doing, which I touched on a little bit. But definitely have a website. Definitely put that work on your website. Be social on social media. Don't just post and shout to air. I mean, these brands that you want to work with, they're on Instagram too. So I know at the beginning, like I would follow brands that I'd want to work with, interact with brands that I want to work with, consistently put out the type of content that you want to do, and then don't be afraid to pitch yourself also.
Mm-hmm. How do you go about pitching them? Like on Instagram?
I would say through email. Sometimes it's really hard to get a contact through email, but I mean, think about all the different ways that you can figure out the marketing manager for a company. LinkedIn is useful. Just Googling like PR manager for so-and-so brand, finding people that way. You could even pick up and call them if you really wanted to find out who their marketing manager was. I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to say it doesn't take work, but it's possible. And then once you find that person, I think it's about giving, you know, a really concise, clear pitch, showing the work that you do. That's when having a great website is really useful, and showing them your Instagram, you know, just like when I was applying to jobs, having something tangible that you can show them to prove why they should hire you.
Yeah. Well, I know you recently went through a website redo, and it looks amazing.
Thank you.
If you guys haven't seen it, we'll put the link in the show notes so people can go check it out. And so I'm curious to hear, for folks who are trying to develop their brands and their brand identity, you know, I think both as someone who works on developing that for other brands and also someone who just went through that for her own brand, like what are some things that people should be thinking about so they develop an identity that is, you know, that not, I mean, it resonates with the audience, but also is distinctive? Because there's, I think, this tendency for things to start looking like everybody else's, you know, and, you know, you want to stand out, you know, and so how do you do that? What kind of advice do you have for folks as they're trying to develop their own, whether it's a personal brand or a product-based brand? Any thoughts on that?
The first thing is that your brand should be consistent across every single touch point. Whether you're on Instagram stories talking, whether you're posting on your Instagram feed, Twitter, Pinterest, every single platform, they should know who you are on each of those. That can be accomplished through the type of messaging. So like for me, it's always like very positive, very happy. Like you're never going to see me on Instagram stories complaining, whining, nothing like that. It's always positive, happy. Even if I'm having a bad day, put a smile on for that story. So I think that can really help build consistency in a brand. Aside from those kind of personal interactions, the imagery, I mean, I am a photographer, so I am biased to imagery, but I mean, Annette, I think you can attest to having consistent imagery across all your channels. Like that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm a very visual person, so having that, like when it looks so visually scrumptious, like makes me so excited. And in fact, I want more of it.
Yeah, and it's you too. Like it's images that reflect not only you, but who you're targeting. So like I said, I'm targeting beauty, lifestyle, and hospitality brands. I'm not going to have like boring pictures or, lots of nature pictures or something.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be clean, colorful images that are going to describe me and also attract the ideal client.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think it's amazing to me how over the years, I think just given, social media and the kind of the Instagram tools and all those things that are out there, just how important it has become to be able to communicate a message visually. I think, obviously words are always important, but to really think about how does the design of something, how does that aesthetic of something, what does that communicate? It's like just another level that you need to be thinking about. Obviously depends on what kind of business you're in, but people just make really quick judgments, and they're going to probably process an image a whole lot faster than words, right? I'm sure there's a study that says that they do.
Such little time to make a first impression.
Yeah. Okay, so you, I think, are kind of, I don't know if you're known for, but one of the things that I love of what you do are those stop motion kind of, videos and stuff. What has been kind of, whether it's stop motion or not, what has been kind of one of the most challenging projects in terms of like logistics and making it work? Anything
That's a great question. Well, yesterday I started working with a new beauty brand, and a lot of their products have coconuts. And so we're like, okay, yeah, we'll just like show the product in a coconut. Well, like, have you ever bought a coconut, like not one of those young coconuts that you drink out of, like one of the hairy coconuts that fall off the tree? Like, have you ever gotten one of those before? Have you ever seen one of those?
I've seen one, and I bet they don't lay flat or stand up straight.
Well, like, when you see them in pictures, they're always like perfectly cut in half, or you see like an acai bowl inside of a coconut. Yeah. Or, it's like perfect. So I'm like, okay, like I just like saw this in half. Turns out you have to like chisel them open. So I'm like on my cement floor with a towel. My styling assistant is there like Googling how to do this. And I'm like whacking it as hard as I possibly can with a hammer.
What happened?
I mean, we didn't get a video, but we should have.
Were you able to crack it open?
A few of them were moldy, which was really disgusting.
Oh,
actually.
Gosh.
But a few of them, you always buy extra because you never know what's going to happen when you go to style stuff. So I got some good pieces out of it, and I'm excited with how the videos turned out. But stop motions can be really tricky because, you cannot move. Nothing can move. Yeah. And I think over the last 2 years, I've definitely honed that skill and found ways to perfect the process so that things don't move, and different equipment and things that have all really helped with that. But it's always, especially if you have multiple people, it's always kind of like a ballet orchestrated to not mess anything up and to be patient and to slowly move things. It's definitely an art.
Yeah. It's funny because like everything always looks so pretty, and you work so like, you end up getting this like 30-second video or whatever, this 15-second video, but you don't realize like how much time it takes from like the sourcing of the products to the styling of the products to like with the stop motion. I mean, because you and I have worked together, I've actually seen you work, and I'm like, yeah, this takes time. So it is definitely, patience is key.
And lately, I mentioned my styling assistant. He's been amazing for helping me with efficiency, and he has a design background and is very, very good with crafting. And so he's been making a lot of the props that we've been using, like whether that's through like paper cutouts, like hot gluing. And it's just really, I think, people always talk about finding the right people and how that can help grow your business. But I'm really have been seeing it now that I've found the right person. Like, it's definitely taken me a really long time. I've gone through quite a few different assistants and things, but finding somebody that really adds value, like there's nothing better. And the work is better because of it.
And so how did you go about finding these different team members or whatnot? You know, whether it's a stylist or someone who's maybe helping you edit, like what has worked well for you?
Well, I put some calls out on Instagram. Those have gone well. That's how I found my photo editor. She's great. She's amazing. She works remotely. Recommendations have been good. You know, that's how I've got in touch with people like you for legal stuff, accountants, financial people. That's all been through recommendations. The stylist I work with was also a friend of a friend of a friend. So I think it's really just not being afraid to talk about what you need.
Yeah.
Because somebody may know how to help you.
Yeah. And I feel like now that you're kind of you've made the move to Los Angeles, I feel like you're so much more like connected, right? In the sense that like you have like physical access to people as well. It makes it easier for making those connections. But
exactly.
I mean, not that everybody needs to move to LA, but you also have a great platform on Instagram where you are potentially connected to people all over the world too. So
yeah, and there are a lot of great people here, but there's great people everywhere. It's just about looking in the right places.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's up ahead for you? I know you just did this recent, kind of website relaunch. Like, what can we all expect from Lish Creative in the coming months, years, decades?
That's a great question. There's actually two new things. The first is I'm coming out with an online course.
Oh, nice.
It's called Slay the Flat Lay.
Oh, that's cute.
It will focus on overhead photography, all forms of overhead content. So photography and stop motion for beginners. I mean, if you are a blogger, a business owner, an Instagrammer, a hobbyist, and you want to learn how to put that DSLR camera to work and how to style, how to use lighting, or I'm even going to show versions of doing that on your phone. It's
nice.
A course for you. It's everything I've learned in the past 2 years. Everything I wish I knew when I first started, pretty much.
Awesome. I'm going to be signing up because clearly I need to be learning how to do stop motion videos, but
yeah, no, I mean, it's not that hard. A lot of times people are trying and just need to make a few tweaks. So I think it's really great for beginners who just kind of want to get an idea of what's involved with some of these things and to have it be really actionable. Like, these are the exact things that you need to buy. These are the exact steps that you need to take to be able to light a photo like this or that. And besides the course, which I'm decided to come out with that because anytime I post behind the scenes things on Instagram, I get like 20 questions asking about, oh, what setup are you using? What brand is that? What lighting is that? So this is kind of going to be one place to answer all those questions.
Love it.
Another thing that's come up a lot is that there are a lot of small businesses that want to work with me. Mm-hmm. But, as my business has grown, the rates for my work are beyond a small business budget. So it's been a case a lot recently where people will reach out with a smaller budget than they need to work with me. And sometimes I'll just give them a discount or do it because I like them or whatever. But I really wanted to come up with a program for these people specifically. So how can I serve more people, basically? And a lot of photographers do this through stock photography, which is fine, but, that's not very personalized at all. And to me, a lot of stock looks the same. So I came up with the idea of semi-custom content, which I'll be taking on just a few clients per month under a centralized theme, standardized pricing. And it's basically, think about it as stock photos, but with your product swapped in.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah, it's a step up from stock. That's basically how I'm positioning it.
A step up from stock. You should probably get that URL as well.
Well, it's not. We're just kind of testing it right now, gauging interest. Like I said, probably just like one theme a month. So like June is going to be florals. So basically all of these pictures for the different brands will all have flowers in them.
And so it'll be limited, right? So a limited number of people.
Like limited to 10 people. And it's also limited to industry. So like there cannot be 2 skincare brands, for instance.
I really like that because although I think stock photography is great, and I know I've been pushing you to do like a stock photo site as well, I think what ends up happening is, so like because they're unlimited licenses, right? And so all of a sudden everybody has the same looking images. And so then that goes to the whole brand identity, right? So if your identity starts looking, so much, I mean, your whole feed is filled with, those same images, it starts blurring those lines. And so I do see a need for business owners like myself, right? I'm not a photographer, even though sometimes I pretend like I am, I'm not. And so I see how I see the need for a very more cost-effective way of getting these images, but then you want to find a way to kind of limit its use so that not everybody has the same images. So whether you have a stock photography website where maybe they're only limited to 10 licenses and once those are sold, those are sold. But this is also nice because like you said, you get to personalize it and you get to make it with your product in there.
Exactly. Like to me, a lot of stock is just like fluff, right? It's just like filling up your content because you need something. It's not really you. Like, for instance, I'm mainly talking about product-based businesses because if you're a product-based business, like you need photos of your product. You don't need photos of a random desktop,
Yeah.
But for you, I mean, you have services, but you also have contracts. So, your contracts could be the star of the semi-custom
Girl,
content.
save me a spot. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, you can check it out. It's definitely not something that I'm like putting on my website yet or really advertising yet. It's just as these clients reach out to me and I see their budgets, this is something I'm suggesting for them and we're going to kind of see how it goes.
I like that. And here you are. You're like, I'm just going to kind of test it and see, like you're paying attention to the market. I think one thing you're really good at is like you pay attention and you listen and you engage with your audience or the community. Like you're one of the people I was like, how'd you grow your Instagram following? And you're like, well, I spend a lot of time talking to people. Like it's social media because you got to be social. And like when you said, I'm kind of guilty of just like posting and like running away, but yeah, but I feel like because we're friends on Instagram, I see like you're always commenting on people and I'm like, wow, how does this girl have the time? And so I don't know what my point was here, but I did have a point. I think, my point was that I think, like you have to constantly kind of stay ahead of that curve or like kind of pay attention, keep your finger on the pulse. And so one thing I want to ask you as someone who I think is, like kind of an expert with this, kind of on the forefront of, using social media as a way to market yourself. What kind of changes are you seeing on the horizon in terms of this tool? Because we all know a lot of changes have happened in the last like 2.5 years. 2.5 years ago, I think Periscope was in, right? We didn't even have Instagram stories. It was kind of crazy to think about. Like I even went back.
It moves so fast.
I was like deleting pictures off my iPhone and I was like, oh my God, I had screenshots of like Instagram back when it had like the blue like background, like the look of it has changed, right? So what are some kind of things and rumblings you feel are coming down the pike here?
There's a few things. I think one, which a lot of people probably already know, is that stories are huge. If you're not doing them, you need to be. We don't always want to go on there and show our face, but there's other ways to do it. You can post still images with text, and using the features that Instagram provides does so much for engagement. They want you to use the polls. They want you to use the GIFs. Have fun with it while you stay on brand, of course. But really use their features that they're offering. And then I think video is going to continue to be a really powerful tool. I mean, right now I see, up to 3 times higher engagement on a video than a static post. And I've completely stopped offering still photos as part of influencer campaigns because they just don't get the traction that a video can receive.
So all you do is videos now for folks?
As like an influencer. So like H&R Block came to me for tax day wanting to do a post. And I said, sure, but it's going to be a video.
Okay. For when you're the influencer. Okay.
When I'm the influencer and when they just want to spread the word about something, to me, I'm only doing video for that. Number one, you can charge more for it. And number two, I mean, that's not the main reason, but that's definitely a contributing factor. And number two is that the reach is just so much higher.
Yeah. I was just on the phone, like Facebook reached out to me today to help me with my ads, yeah, I was like, I kind of feel special, even though I know I'm not. But I was asking them, and they did say, in terms of, I was like, what are some best practices and things like that, and they said definitely using Instagram stories for ads. And I said, well, are people willing to click out of Instagram stories, right, to go to the website or wherever, that the next step is for that information. And he said, yeah, because it's a swipe, versus a click, we're seeing a lot more people. Basically, Instagram stories are doing well for people in terms of ads. So, and then I tried to get him to up my account so that I could get all the cool features that all the people with 1 million followers have, but he couldn't do that. So
1,000, I think, right?
Yeah, I have quite a ways to go. So if you're listening, go follow me on Instagram so I can get those cool features.
Yeah, I had the follower count, but I waited months and months before I switched to a business profile.
Why?
To get the features, because I'm just a little bit of a skeptic.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit afraid of what Instagram will do with organic reach. I'm still afraid, honestly. I mean, it's not good. And when you look at Facebook, the trend there, the organic reach is very low on Facebook. And, Instagram is going to go that way, but you have to play their game.
You gotta pay to play, I think.
You have to, yeah.
Even my dad today he's so funny. He's like, I think they're censoring certain content on Facebook. And so he was kind of annoyed about that. And I was like, Dad, it's a business, it's good to be aware of it and know how what's happening, but you can't get pissed off. It's like you're entering somebody's house and they're telling you these are the rules if you're going to come into my house. Don't smoke in my house. Don't wear your shoes in my house. Don't color on my walls, right? If you can't abide by those rules, then, don't come into the house. That's so...
It's true. It's so true. And people will whine about the algorithm. I mean, I'm talking bad about reach, but really, we need to remember that, this platform is free.
Yeah.
Think about where I've gotten before they made these changes. I'm just living that up. I'm still riding that wave. Okay. I wouldn't have my business without Instagram. That's just a fact.
Yeah. And so I think, it sucks to have to spend that money, but I think, I don't know. I guess I'm just in a really in a different mindset about certain things. And I feel it is what it is. And so rather than fight it and get upset with it, I rather educate myself on it and figure out okay, well, what are these different tools or these different levers that I could pull? And does it make sense for me in my business? If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Exactly.
You don't need to be on Instagram. You don't need to be on Facebook to have a successful business. I know people who don't even have websites and they're running huge businesses.
Have a website. I mean, I was just going to say it also makes you realize how important having your presence off of social media is. So to me, that's why I invested in my website, because I know that Instagram could continue to decline or could disappear tomorrow. You never know what's going to happen to that portfolio of work. Truly, people lose access to their accounts. They get hacked.
Yeah.
All their photos get deleted. Imagine if you didn't have a website. And I know a lot of Instagrammers that don't have a website. Put something out there, anything, a landing page. My God, just put your contact info on it.
But did you see my post? This is so funny. Did you see my post from when I was in Paris a few weeks ago when there was this restaurant we went to, literally no website. I think they just operate purely on Yelp reviews and Instagram, I think. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. My point was There is no freaking formula. Like, I think at the end of the day, if you provide a service that's worth talking about, that people, it's like connecting with people, like, it doesn't matter what tools you're using because they're gonna find you. And like, this restaurant's like sitting on the top of the hill behind the soccer curve. Like, you have to wait in, like, most days you have to wait in line to get into it. Like, they run out of food, like, it's not, it's only been there for 2 years. And so my point is, yeah, it's like this, they're from Australia. My point was, I guess, in that post was that I think all of these tools are great, but at the end of the day, no tool is going to cover or like, at the end of the day, you have to provide a good service and a good product.
Absolutely.
And that word of mouth is always the best form of advertising. It's such a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. And so anyway, that's what I had to say about that.
Definitely true. And I think also like it's about your audience and where they're looking for information.
True.
So like with a restaurant in Paris, those people, they want to find something hidden. They don't want something that's like all over Instagram. They want something that's authentic and real and best kept secret type of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. So that they can go and Instagram about it.
Yeah, exactly. They want to be the one to discover it. Exactly.
It was funny because the owner came by and I was talking to him and he was like, I was obviously doing the obligatory like food picture, like taking a picture of my food, the overhead thing. And he was like, yeah, we're actually thinking about creating like plastic versions of all of our dishes so people can just take pictures of those. He was just kidding. So he was kidding, but he's like, so people can take pictures of those and they can enjoy their actual meal. So anyway.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, Alisha, thank you so much for, just kind of showing up here and just being honest and transparent with your business and what it's taken to get there and what it takes to operate it, even if it means cracking a coconut, on your cement floors. And spending hours doing that just to get that great shot. And so we'll definitely link up to all of the great resources, your website, Lish Creative, Slay the Flat Lay, and all of your, what did you call it? Step up from, what was
semi-custom content, which is, you have to email me for that, but it's available.
Awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap it up here, I'd love to always ask my guests one last kind of fill in the blank question, which is the one thing I know for sure is, and I ask you to fill in the blank.
And the one thing I know for sure is everything's going to be okay.
And with that, let's wrap it up. Thank you, Alisha, for being here.
Thank you so much, Annette. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to be on the show.
Woo! With 76 episodes under our belt, you know how this goes, my friend. If you want to get in touch with Alisha, you want to check out her work, you want to check out the Slay the Flat Lay course that's coming up, you want to head on over to our show notes. And it's going to be available over at AnnetteStepanian.com/podcast/76. Or you can always find Alisha at lishcreative.com. That's LISH creative.com. Okay, my friend, this is it. This is another episode under wraps. I can't wait to talk to you next week. We've got a whole bunch of fresh episodes coming your way. So if you're not already subscribing to the show, head on over, click subscribe, and while you're there, why don't you leave me a little review? I really do appreciate the love. Before you skip to that next episode, I want to invite you to a special event called Legal 360 Live. In this live online summit, we're going to walk through what you need to know, legally speaking, as you start and grow your business. So if you're ready to roll up your polka-dotted sleeves and finally get your legal house in order once and for all, head on over to yourlegalbff.com/live. That's yourlegalbff.com/live.